Be happy, happy. Got nothing to do? Wanna have some fun?
Hey. What's in Dad's basement?
When many mouths consume its body from all sides, gnawing at it until nothing remains.
Hey kids, did you ever have that game that just kind of caught your imagination like very few others before it? Just kind of enthralled you and pulled you into its world and made you think about all the other things that could have been done with it? Well, it kind of goes without saying at this point, I guess, that Eternal Darkness, Sanity's Requiem was one of those games for me. In previous videos in this series, I took you through Lovecraftian horror and games. I went through Eternal Darkness specifically a little bit. I talked about the press response to Denis Dyack and Silicon Knights after Eternal Darkness, and then I went through other Kickstarters in 2012 leading up to 2013 and the press response to those and their success. So at the tail end of all this, in May 2013, when Precursor Games, a brand new company, started crowdfunding to follow up Eternal Darkness with a spiritual successor with a lot of the original creators from Silicon Knights, I thought maybe we'd reach a time where past mistakes would be forgotten for Denis Dyack, like it had been for Chris Roberts, Brian Fargo, Tim Schafer. I thought maybe this new studio would be welcomed like it had been for Jordan Weissman and Harebrained Schemes, or for Ryan Payton and Camouflage. I thought maybe it was time for us to go back and take what was good before and forget the mistakes that had happened in the meantime with bad PR and games that hadn't been well received, and support this team and see if we can't bring this game to fruition.
The revolutionary nature of the new means of production and communication would have naturally generated radical ideas in every realm of human enterprise. Time became an adversary over which technology could triumph. There was no time to look back or to contemplate what was being lost. There were empires to build.
We founded Precursor Games July 2012. What we wanted to do was create an efficient, agile environment where we have a core team.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan McCaffrey with IGN, and today is one of my full circle career days. I played Eternal Darkness several times, got all 4 endings. I'm joined by the creator of that game, the man Denis Dyack. Denis, you're here today. If you tuned into IGN yesterday, or if you missed it, go take a look now. Shadow of the Eternals is the new game.
So this is a new game. It's got some of the same spirit of Eternal Darkness, but it's a new cast of characters. Everything's new.
It's a crowdsourced game. That was probably the most surprising thing for me when I started learning about this.
The idea of Precursor Games was created from the ground up to take advantage of several things. One is new digital distribution methods are changing radically the publishing environment. And
very true.
Yeah, and it's we hear a lot of things like, one of the things that I'm a big believer in, and things that we aspire to, is we always say we want to create games that we want to make. And I think that's good, and I support that still. But what this new phenomenon in crowdsourcing allows us to change that up and almost take it to the next level, or not almost, but really take it to the next level. So when you pledge to Shadow of the Eternals, you get a chance to create content for the game, and if the community likes it, we'll put it in. So you can be the author. So we're going to allow the community to actually create games that they want to play.
Man, so I was excited. I was jazzed. I was ready to get in there and let's get this thing promoted and get it out there and get it funded like all these other ones got funded, and then I can play the game that I was interested in. I donated enough to get the physical copy straight away, which was a good amount of money, and came out immediately through PayPal. It was an immediate donation of money, got charged straight away and sent off to them.
Hello everyone, this is Hollander Cooper from Games Radar here, checking out Shadow of the Eternals with some of the fine people making it happen. Can you introduce yourself for everyone?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Denis Dyack, the Chief Creative Officer from Precursor Games.
And I am Sean Jackson, Chief Operating Officer.
So what era is this right here?
This is 1700s, and Elizabeth Bathory is one of the most prolific female serial killers. She killed over 400 women, bathed in their blood, and tried to maintain eternal youth.
Did it work?
Well, no.
We're not sure. That's yet to be proven.
Yeah.
She could still be running around.
Yeah.
So, like the spirit of Eternal Darkness, we're taking historically accurate characters and periods and spinning Lovecraftian mythos around it.
I jumped right in on the forums and got in there and we started designing stuff, right? And we started talking about the original game and what we liked about it. And out of all the directly Lovecraft-inspired games, Eternal Darkness is my favorite. It's really just a great clockwork little package of the game. And on those forums, I found this great group of other people, really creative minds, intelligent people, all coming together to try and support this project and pulling together as a team, getting to know each other's names.
What I would like to show off now is some of the community creation initiatives that are going on for both Elder Gods and Enemy Concepts.
A certain group of fans gathered together and launched Order 333, which was a podcast kind of dedicated to and focused around that community, and now having gone on to a new name, Game Crunch, but having originally been born from that community.
Welcome to Order 333 episode number 2. My name is Mike Anastasia, and with me today is Tom, Brandon, we got Sean, and we have Dennis.
Hey everyone, Dennis on the forums, Denis Dyack. The amount of input and quality stuff that we're getting on the forums has by far exceeded our expectations, and I think it's the breaking down of the walls of people not worrying about if their ideas are good or bad, and then just sort of putting them out there and having people add to them. And I just hope that's what it is, because I'll tell you, it already seems like a majority. Maybe that's the wrong word, but a lot of people in the order get it.
There was a lot that had always fascinated me about the story of Eternal Darkness. And one of the aspects to it that I thought was most interesting and sort of underexplored was the conspiracy angle of Eternal Darkness, and the way bone thieves were embedded and hidden in important figures and agents around the world and enacting the will of the ancients. It's kind of a horror trope you've seen in a lot of other fiction. John Carpenter's played around with it a little bit in The Thing and They Live. Do you know the person you're dealing with, or are they actually a hidden agent of some evil entity? It's kind of a very relevant point in our society these days.
Hi, it's John Carpenter. They Live was a movie I made towards the end of the 80s, and I was reflecting on a lot of the values that I saw around me at the time, mainly inspired by Ronald Reagan's conservative revolution. There was a great deal of obsession with greed and making a lot of money, and some of the values that I grew up with had been pushed aside. So I decided to scream out in the middle of the night and make a statement about that. And They Live is partially a political statement, it's partially a tract on the world that we live in today. And as a matter of fact, right now, it's even more true than it was then. We are manipulated by a lot of media around us. We are consumed by consumerism. And as you can see, the recent events in this country, they are still among us. They do live.
One of the shortcomings of the original game was it only really applied that kind of conspiracy angle to an ancient conspiracy involving Charlemagne, something not really relatable or relevant to what people think of as conspiracy theories in the current day and age. And so I thought, why not update that story aspect and involve bone thieves embedded in other more current historical events.
Got a fire in the deli. Got a fire in the deli. Yeah. Fire Control Battalion 2, stand by for dispatch.
Bill.
We have a report of a fire in the building. in the deli of the MGM.
November 21st, 1980. At the time, the MGM Grand Hotel fire was the second worst hotel fire in U.S. history.
So my specific idea in this regard involved crafting a story that mimicked the real-life story of the burning down, or rather the fire, at the MGM Grand Hotel.
With the top layer of the building over the deli, it created a complete vacuum. Was this a failure governed and fixed by the code? Even at the source of the fire, that area had multiple drawings of changes after the building was completed. Drawings after the completion of the 1973 construction and in-house changes thereafter, which I recovered in misplaced files.
Thought it might be fascinating and interesting to take that particular tragic event, or, not historically that event by name, but some analog to that event, and contextualize it within the story of the ancients.
It was a government-controlled agency to fall. By placing a new idea for the eye in the sky.
I had real interest in diving into some of the mechanics of the sanity and the combat and the creature encounters.
Hi everyone, Sean here. I wanted to give you guys an inside look into our vision for sanity events in Shadow of the Eternals.
I suggested on the forums, and this post got interest from one of the developers, that we actually create a situation where you wanted the sanity meter to be low.
Sometimes players want to be insane in order to see that secret door that otherwise they wouldn't be able to see.
I extrapolated and thought about that further, and I thought about other games that I'd played in the Lovecraft genre, including the Call of the Cthulhu Dark Corners of the Earth game. That game and Amnesia Dark Descent both had situations where when you got into darkness or looking at creatures, you would lose sanity, and this would be expressed as like post-processing effects. It would distort your vision and actually make it more difficult to play, etc., because you couldn't see properly because you were so insane. And that actually felt like a sort of a penalty to exploring the sanity mechanism so much, and really if they just ended up killing you, there wasn't much interest in exploring them from a gameplay objective perspective anyway.
Another example would be, say you enter a room and you see a door on the ceiling, and perhaps if you lose your sanity in that room, the room starts rotating, and before you know it, you're walking on the walls, and you can actually get to that door now.
And this ended up going into a much further direction on the community, the idea that not seeing the creatures clearly was actually a function of having your sanity, and that's a very Lovecraftian idea. It's that seeing and perceiving things more clearly is actually what leads to less sanity.
The veil of reality, it's there to protect us from them, the ancients, the darkness, that which we cannot understand. Nor should we. Welcome the oblivion of ignorance, for to have knowledge is to be damned.
So by featuring sanity into things like magic, combat, exploration and discovery, we really can embrace that entire concept.
And so the extension of that idea was that a creature's first appearance would perhaps have some sort of effect like that if you couldn't properly perceive it. And at that time in combat, you could only do non-targeted, non-body targeted attacks. What if in your insanity, or rather your sanity, you were being too sane, you hallucinated the creature as some sort of other animal, some sort of large brutish animal that you couldn't quite perceive or see until your sanity broke and you finally saw what the creature really was. So then the other problem with the original Eternal Darkness, that it felt like this was the opportunity to address, was when you lost all your sanity. A lot of times you weren't aware of it. Your sanity just went down and then your health meter started to drain. You didn't really have a strong indication that you were out of sanity. When you lose all your sanity entirely, how does that lead you to lose your health? Well, it's not just a meter that goes down. In real life, if you lost your sanity entirely, maybe you would start cutting yourself in order to relieve what you were feeling. Maybe you would run headlong into a wall. These could be actions your characters were taking on screen, you know.
They haven't grabbed me yet because they want to see how the experiment turns out.
You cannot know that!
And you could do some really interesting things with it, integrated with Sanity events itself. We got in, we started messing around and talking with the designers. We had our fun. We started to make friends. And then we eagerly went out into the world to try and drum up support for this thing and to eagerly hear what everybody's response would be as we moved forward.
Hello and welcome to episode 340 of the Player One podcast for Monday, May 6th. I'm your host, Chris Johnson. With me as always is the original whimsical Philly, Phil Theobald.
Yeah, right. Right.
And joining us from the frozen north, although it's May, so it's probably not too frozen, right? Greg Stewart.
How you doing, sir?
Good, thanks.
Good, excellent. You have been through a lot in the last 10 years. You've freelanced for places such as Electronic Gaming Monthly, G4 TV's X-Play, Game Trailers, which is also relatively well known, and more. Now you're the producer at Frontier Developments here.
Me and a couple of friends actually started a website that you've also probably heard of called Gaming Age.
Yes, absolutely.
Where NeoGAF came from.
Mm-hmm.
So we started that up in the mid-90s and just sort of got noticed.
Podcasts have kind of become the secret meeting place for the literati of the gaming press, right?
Got noticed by Ziff Davis, and I actually landed a staff job at Ziff Davis for a little while, so I was at Electronic Gaming Monthly full-time. Me and an old buddy of mine who also worked at Electronic Gaming Monthly named Chris Johnston back in 2006, we decided we're interesting. Why not?
A place where you had to listen to hours and hours of opinion to glean the overall conclusions.
But since then, we've brought on another guy, Phil Theobald, who was also an old Ziff Davis guy, worked at EGM and a couple of magazines, and another guy named Mike Phillips, who was never a full-timer at those, but he's also done a lot of game reviews and things.
There's a Kickstarter campaign, I think it begins tomorrow, where there's a developer working on an Eternal Darkness spiritual successor.
Is Mr. Dyack involved?
In some way, he is involved, yes.
Wow. Is he actually the one asking for the money, and this person who's running the Kickstarter is...
yeah, I don't know, actually.
Because
unclear. It's unclear.
Where he is Canadian, or his company would be Canadian-based, he would have to use a middleman to use Kickstarter.
Right. Yeah.
So...
Are Canadians not allowed to use
Kickstarter? Well, Kickstarter isn't in Canada right now.
Gotcha.
It's only for U.S. projects, and now UK as well.
Okay.
Now, what is your role like in Frontier Developments? What exactly are you doing right now?
Yeah, well, the big project right now for Frontier is Elite Dangerous, which was a huge it was actually a Kickstarter. I think it was the first major Kickstarter campaign on the UK version of Kickstarter when it launched. But our company was launched based on the game Elite, which came out in the early 80s. Our president, David Braben, was one of the guys who created that game.
I think it will probably succeed. They got 30 days to do I think they're asking for $1.5 million, but there are a lot of people who love Eternal Darkness.
I'm gonna vomit.
The thing that people who love Eternal Darkness need to make sure they remember is the greatness of Eternal Darkness, from everything I've read and have been led to understand, had a lot to do with Nintendo's involvement.
Yeah.
Because they kind of lost their way once they weren't doing games for Nintendo anymore.
Okay, so I see. So we're not gonna give this guy a chance and not talk about all the past mistakes.
So the whole idea of, Nintendo was responsible for in some ways, they worked really, really closely with us, and they definitely helped and are a great partner. They're one of the best groups we've ever worked with. I do think that Eternal Darkness was, the core of it was, and the direction of it was us when we were creating it. And when we're talking about Shadow of the Eternals, to be clear, we're making a spiritual successor, but it is not going to be the same because who we're collaborating with now is the community.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be different. And I guess we are extremely excited about that, but I'm never going to try to take anything away from Nintendo, and people are going to feel how they're going to feel.
So,
yeah,
I don't know. I wouldn't.
What, you didn't like Two Human? Two Human's brilliant.
I personally, I mean, from all the reports that have ever been done about that company and how it ended, I wouldn't want to risk giving any money to that man.
We didn't talk about all the past mistakes with Tim Schafer or Brian Fargo or anybody else, but this guy, we're going to focus on the past mistakes, I see.
Just saying.
I hope you people are happy.
But do you think it will succeed or not? That's the big.
I think it'll succeed, but I would be worried about the final product.
Okay.
Yeah.
We can only focus on creating great games, and that's all I can do. You're as good as your last game, and that's what this industry is about. And so when you're saying earlier that we have a lot of trust regain, we do, and we're going to do it. We're throwing ourselves out there.
Oi! It's May the 7th, 2013, and you're listening to the Giant Bombcast. I'm Ryan Davis. I'd like to say a big howdy to Brad Shoemaker.
Hello, Governor.
A fine hola to my phone. Mute that. A fine hola to Vinny Caravella.
Ciao.
Guten Tag to Jeff Gerstmann. And, I ran out.
Konnichiwa.
And yes, konnichiwa to Mr. Patrick Klepek. All right, let's talk about some new releases for this.
Wait.
I'm sorry, is there other news, Patrick?
Dennis Dyack wants people's money.
Right. I kind of didn't want to talk about that, but partially because I didn't know the details on it.
Precursor Games, which is...
If you look at the team they have listed on the website and go look at all their individual bios, you see a whole lot of X-Men Destiny and Two Human and other Twin Snakes,
Yeah. Are you saying you're not seeing a lot of Eternal Darkness?
You see some Eternal Darkness. I'm saying you don't see a lot of not
Silicon Knights.
Oh, sure. I would expect it to be almost entirely Silicon Knights, because who else could you trick into working with Denis Dyack?
Ooh, not good.
And then have the audacity to ask for $1.5 million.
$1.5 million.
To do what? To make Shadow of the Eternals, which is essentially
a spiritual successor.
Yeah, it may as well be Eternal Darkness 2. It just can't have the characters and mythology, but for...
They have built a page that looks like a Kickstarter page, but is not a Kickstarter page, because why cut Kickstarter in on the money?
I think also there are territory limitations.
Oh, wait.
Oh, because they're in Canada, so they can't do... Okay.
It only took me about 5 minutes of effort to look up that it was a plugin called Ignition Deck that they used, Precursor Games used, to power the crowdfunding on their site that was designed to look like Kickstarter. Yes, that was what the product offered. You go right to the Ignition Deck website, the first thing you see is that Star Citizen successfully used Ignition Deck on its own website to raise, obviously, tens and 20s of millions of dollars since then.
The trailer looks like Eternal Darkness.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not trying to hide it too much.
Which on paper...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like Eternal Darkness.
And I've wanted an excuse to get back to that game because I started playing it last summer and then just kind of fell off. But, why would you give your money to Denis Dyack?
I don't know.
That's a great response to that.
Yeah, I don't know.
As soon as I heard the Bombcast, I figured, well, that's it then. Everything after that point, it's just uphill climb against impossible odds. The listenership of the Bombcast far exceeds anything that this simple team's ability to put out information could compete with.
Hello and welcome to the official Precursor Games podcast, talking all about Shadow of the Eternals. My name is Phil Hames, and this is my co-host, Aaron Unger. Say hi, Aaron.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey, so I am the forum administrator for Precursor Games, and Aaron is the community manager. We managed to collar Paul, who is the CEO of the company, and hammer him into an interview.
So how you guys been today?
Yeah, it's people said this whole crowdfunding campaign is just like a crazy stressful experience, and you never know it until you actually get into it, but they are right.
Oh man, you're telling me.
Hello and welcome to episode 341 of the Player One podcast for Monday, May 13th, 2013.
It's a Kickstopper. I'm launching Kickstopper. It's going to be badass. I think I can get a lot of support for it.
I'm very proud of myself for calling how shady the whole Eternal Darkness Kickstarter thing actually turned out to be.
That's not even
how
Kickstarter.
about that, huh? That's not a Kickstarter. That's just a donation box.
Yeah.
At the time that Star Citizen launched their Kickstarter, Chris Roberts launched a Kickstarter at the same time as their own website crowdfunding. $2 million was earned on Kickstarter, the $500,000 goal, and $6 million was earned during the same period of time on their own website. Through Ignition Deck, much the same way that Precursor Games tried to just launch it one-off.
How about that Shadow of the Eternals, though? That I'm excited about that.
So did you read? Did you read the Polygon story about that?
My money out. No, I did not.
Oh, really? It's like I was saying. It's just as shady as I thought it was.
So I was just in the office in Vox Media's New York City headquarters, and some lovely journalism students came in. So I walked in, and you know me, I'm Straight Talk Express numero uno. Yeah. And I started off by saying, "Hey guys, don't be assholes at your job, because people will remember and never hire you again."
Good start.
My name is Justin McElroy, and I know the best thing of the week.
My name is Griffin McElroy, and I know the best thing of the week.
My name is Chris, and I'm a hip-hop all-star.
Okay. My name is Russ Frushtick, and I know the best game of the week.
This is the Besties, where we talk about the latest and greatest in technology, gaming, and movies.
Hi, Steven. How are you?
Hey.
Oh, are we getting this on camera?
So my thing this week is the best gaming news story of the decade that is getting worse and worse with every passing day. And that is Shadow of the Eternals.
Give us the timeline.
That's the thing. I don't even know where to start with this story because there's so many facets.
What the conversation is focused on was not up to us. That was decided by everybody else and the tack that they wanted to take of it. And really, it was decided by the very first responses, by the very first people who got a hold of the information.
IGN started teasing this announcement of Shadow of the Eternals, which would be a follow-up to Eternal Darkness: Sanity's Requiem.
A spiritual sequel.
A spiritual sequel, which Eternal Darkness is by a country mile my favorite horror game of all time. Then their Kickstarter, or sorry, not their Kickstarter, their crowdfunding campaign leaked ahead of the announcement, so they kind of had to drop back and punt and revealed that yes, it was going to be crowdfunded on their website, not on Kickstarter.
Yes, that means you're just asking Precursor Games to take that money and use it to make the game, but that's Kickstarter anyway. That's all any of this is.
Then it started to go bad from there.
These podcasts are like talk radio. What they have to say is drenched in opinion. And it's punditry. It's the same sort of news that you get from the political discussions on the cable news networks. It's about opinion. It's about perception. That's not a surprise to me.
Like, especially when, like, in between what occurred and now, like, zero acknowledgement, like, there's no, like, mea culpa, there's no, you know what, that we really did screw up.
There hasn't even necessarily been any
resolution
sort of resolution of just, like, does Silicon Knights exist?
Silicon Knights is in, I would say, a little bit of legal hot water to the tune of $4.45 million.
I mean, you'd look at this and go, I guess it doesn't, because here are all these people that worked on X-Men Destiny saying, hey, we're Precursor Games. Like, then, you know, because there's been no resolution, I look at that and go, like, is this a shell company for Silicon Knights? Does, like what?
Were all these assets made at Silicon Knights?
Right.
So, like, what happens if that company gets shut down or goes into bankruptcy?
Yeah, there are too many unanswered questions about that status for any of this to feel good.
Like, I'm sure it'll get funded. Guarantee it. They will get their $1.5 million, but What are you doing if you're that person?
But at the same time, we're talking about a brand new thing here, crowdfunding, trying to get public perception to raise funds to make a game, right? And therefore, as a public voice, you have a choice of what you're going to talk about in that regard. It affects the project. It affected the project.
This is the Gamers with Jobs conference call for May 15th, 2013. I'm your host, Sean Andrich, and joining me this week, we have Mr. Sean Sands.
Greetings.
We have Mr. Julian Murdoch.
Good evening.
And we have Mr. Corey Banks.
Heidi-ho.
Oh, good. Gamers with Jobs. I like these guys. They're not pros.
To me, the most important thing, the thing that has had the most impact on my gaming life over the last, say, year or two is probably Kickstarter.
I have been very careful. I think I've only kickstarted two things, and that was Double Fine and the Chris Roberts. I forget the name of it, but the Chris Roberts space sim that's coming out soon.
Star Citizen.
The thing that's awesome to me about the Double Fine experience in particular has been I actually feel like I'm getting to understand the process of this game.
Hey, Tim Schafer, what are your words of encouragement for a fledgling indie developer?
We show with our Kickstarter, you don't necessarily have to get permission from some big company to make something you love. You can actually just put your thing out there, and if people like it, they will fund it, and you can do it.
You'll get $3 million, no problem.
So, how did you get this idea for the crowdsourcing route?
We started Precursor in July, and it was fairly early, you know, when Kickstarter was kind of taking off, and other crowdfunding vehicles. And, you know, we were seeing generally, you know, there's pretty good success here.
And he just kept sending advice to me. Over and over and over. I think the toilet one is my favorite.
I have felt this incredible sense of connection to the development of this game that if this game did not release, I would still feel like I got my money's worth. My emotional investment in the process of making this game has been some of the best entertainment I've had in the last few years.
They're like me, you know, just players, people who care about games.
I don't you know, there's a bit of an emotional component when I kickstart something, especially if it's just, you know, freshly launched. Like, you know, obviously when Jeff Kanata says, hey, I want to do this cool thing, I want to do it independently, I want to, you know, create something, I'm like, great, here's my money, have at it.
If you're like me and you think the internet is a little too cynical, if you're looking for a show that talks about geeky topics with enthusiasm and heart, then this is the show for you.
The most interesting thing about Kickstarter to me is the wisdom of crowds. And I only point that out because, you know, Shadows of the Eternals, which is coming from the former Silicon Knight guys, it's coming from Denis Dyack and from some of that crew, they didn't go to Kickstarter. They said, we're going to do our own Kickstarter-looking thing that's not Kickstarter.
Why was there no Kickstarter in the beginning?
Doing a Kickstarter as a Canadian company, it didn't appear to be an option. But we quickly heard the community response for this.
Yeah, we did.
We got on the forums right away. We had to correct this.
Because we're Canadian, which is fine, except if you're Canadian, you can still do Indiegogo. There's lots of other ways to do it. They decided to do their own.
We told the team, you got to start a Kickstarter right away. A lot of people's trust in the company just doesn't seem to be there without Kickstarter to sort of mediate the process. So that's what they did.
So what we decided was the community have already paid. We wanted to give them the business decision to actually say what they want to do with it. And they did, they voted, and that's exactly what we've done. So I think that is a really cool, unique thing that I don't think any other games company has ever done before.
But the whole thing just smells terrible, like from start to finish. Like in any other circumstance, I feel like everybody would be just slobbering all over themselves. It has all the components there. But there's something that doesn't feel right about this project, and it's clearly not working. They've been at it for almost a week. They're at $140,000. Like, we can all smell a rat, and nothing about this smells right.
Oh, I see.
Last week they also launched a Kickstarter campaign.
Lovely.
Alongside their crowdfunding page, which I should mention they modeled to look exactly like Kickstarter.
They all left Silicon Knights. They didn't talk about the fact they left Silicon Knights. Like it's really great seeing that so far the gut of the mob seems to have been pretty good.
Oh boy, the time and information delay was killer. We'd get new, fresh information out, answering questions, and hear that day a podcast repeating old, bad information and asking those same questions.
As for how Precursor Games and everything started, I was laid off from Silicon Knights in July, and it's such a terrible experience. I'm sure anyone can relate getting laid off. So I kind of tried to take a positive spin and say, hey, here's an opportunity where we can start something new. And I just started reaching out to some people, seeing if they were interested in doing something totally brand new. And that's how Precursor was born.
I knew it wasn't going to cut it for us to get our information out there, our own sources. We had to get on some of these shows. We had to get appearances on some of these shows to answer some of these questions.
This is the Gamers with Jobs conference call for May 29th, 2013. I'm your host, Sean Andrich. I'm now joined by Chief Creative Officer of Precursor Games, Denis Dyack.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thanks very much for joining us. And Mr. Sean Jackson, the Chief Operating Officer for Precursor Games.
Great to be here.
You've posted You've posted 9 minutes of actual gameplay, which is something you don't see on Kickstarter very often. Let's start at the beginning. How did Precursor get started? How did it get formed?
Well, first of all, Paul Caparici, he approached me after him and myself, we got laid off. He came to me and said, hey, how do you feel about starting a brand new company and something that's community based?
Okay, so you guys are part of that June layoff period. So you guys turned around and you guys are, okay, we're starting a company, let's just do it. So in those early days, how do you form a team?
Oh, well, I think that's one of the toughest things about starting a company is finding people that you can wholeheartedly rely on. And so Paul did most of the legwork. I really have to give kudos to him.
Yeah, Sean and I, we were always really like-minded when it came to the aspects of production and scheduling, but being flexible enough because, video games isn't just, you write up this big design doc and everything else kind of happens. You have to be able to, find the magic. And also he's got, experience from different studios as well, and I think that's helped give him good perspective.
It's even worse than that, though. It's like a shadow company, basically.
You should go read the Polygon article, because basically what's come of this is that they laid off everybody from Silicon Knights.
So how did it come about that Denis, that you joined Precursor?
Well, I guess I've never really said anything until this point, so I laid myself off as well. So during the same time that all these people were laid off, I was also laid off. And, Silicon Knights is, at the time, and I haven't been there for quite a while now, is focusing on getting that awful verdict overturned in appeal. And that's ongoing, so it's about the extent I can even talk about it.
Of course.
So I was laid off too, and a few people knew about that. Most people did not. And Paul reached out to me too.
But apparently there's a new company that's running this donation drive, which is basically Silicon Knights. Even has Denis Dyack working for them.
I cannot describe how tough it was, because these were people that I had worked with, some with over 2 decades worth of time.
It even has all the old computers from Silicon Knights.
Okay, so in an interview that came out today on Game Informer, and denied that the studio purchased all of the assets for Eternal Darkness that were still on the computers that they bought.
Oh, I'm sure
this
they
the game
could
they've been
rip off.
shopping, or is this the game that has existed for some time?
I don't know.
Think? Or do they have to start over because it doesn't say Silicon Knights above the door?
I'm not sure, because I think Nintendo owns the rights to Eternal Darkness,
right?
And there was rumor that they were working on Eternal Darkness 2 with Nintendo, and then Nintendo, like in the last year or so, canceled that.
When the court decided in favor of Epic Games, they had to wipe their computers and destroy every copy of Two Human and X-Men Legends? Okay.
Which is the question, and why did they want those computers?
Destiny. X-Men Destiny, yes.
He's upset. Let him through. Just let him through, huh? He can come over here. Is it because we're bad-mouthing Denis Dyack?
And, I was not in great state myself personally. And when Paul reached out, I had some concerns, and we all agreed that I would focus on creative and stay completely out of the business stuff.
I mean, $1.5 million doesn't sound like that much to actually make a game.
For a game like Eternal Darkness, there is enough pent-up nostalgia for that game. It will make its 1.5.
Yeah, but what do they do with exactly? What he's saying is what do they do with the money?
Oh, right.
Yeah. Not even doesn't go a long way.
It's
not barely a drop in the bucket.
It's not 12 episodes.
There must be other money. There must be other money involved in this.
Sean, are you guys basically operating out of pocket right now?
Well, everyone is at Precursor under good faith right now, and everyone trusts one another, and they believe in the project. So, yeah, it's been a long year, but you know what really pays off is what we've accomplished, and that demo that you see is, I mean, that's our payday right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have no secret funders, if that's what you're asking. We have no one no one paying. This is the actual cost of the product. We've got no sugar daddy. There's no money hidden away.
We did an interview with one of the few remaining people still at Silicon Knights who said that there was no connection between Precursor and Silicon Knights, except for the fact that in these court documents we found, Silicon Knights sold Precursor games, art assets, computers, f***ing chairs, like so much.
Yeah, there was some question about Precursor purchased some stuff from Silicon Knights. Was that just equipment? Of all the assets, that demo that we see in the Kickstarter, is that all stuff that's been made when you guys formed last July?
We did purchase a small amount of assets. However, something that people need to understand, because even on our forums, they get a little bit confused, is that things are not just plug and play. And I don't know, I'm ballparking at a percentage, but the majority of the stuff that you see in that demo, and I'm talking a large majority here, was done at Precursor.
Yeah, and so the majority of the stuff purchased was like computers and couches and chairs.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if anyone's ever done an assessment of that stuff. They depreciate very quickly, and they're not worth a lot.
It is just as bad and worse as everyone thought it was.
Ooh, yeah.
It's extremely shady, and it's not just, give us lots of money, and we might make a game. It's worse than that.
That's shady that they're saying there's no connection between these two studios, except that Denis Dyack is leading up that one, and we sold them all of our shit. Right?
Yep, not good.
Not great. In order for Epic Games to file a suit against Precursor, they would have to basically start a new lawsuit from scratch.
Achieved with CryEngine.
So basically, Silicon Knights has been whittled down to just a few people whom I imagine, and whom Mike Mays, the chief financial officer of Silicon Knights, he said that they are basically still around and that they are basically full-time fighting the Epic suit. Okay, so that's all pretty shady.
But that is an interesting article, and you should read it. I think that I found it because of Mark McDonald on Twitter, who called the whole thing a shell game.
Welcome to the next 8-4 Play podcast. I, of course, am your host, Mark Gaming Jesus McDonald, JJ, The Streak, Epperson, The Streak, Hiroko H. Dog, Minamoto, John, 30 Seconds of Fame, Ricciardi. Do we even want to talk about this? I'm not sure.
How can we not?
If we talk about it, he'll appear. He wins.
How can you not talk about him?
He wins. Certain person has started a certain Kickstarter.
Well, it wasn't even a Kickstarter at first.
Well, then now it is. Yeah, if you know what we're talking about, you already know. And if you don't, don't worry about it.
Let's just call him Dunkin' Donut.
Basically, it was like a bull campaign of bull going on right now.
Keep going.
Like look closely.
This is like hearing like the Iron Sheik talk about Hulk Hogan. Like they went out at once a couple years back.
My nemesis. Honestly, like I do not wish the person any ill will at all, but there's a lot of shady going down there, and they're not even like trying to be honest or cover it up or whatever. I don't know if they're just too fucking stupid, or if this is them actually thinking that they're being smart about it.
Here's the thing: they put out a 9-minute long video, like a demo of one of the beginning stages, and it looked good. Like it looked like they
Too Human looked good when I saw it.
Well, and then it came out. It looked like they had done some work on it.
At Silicon Heights.
There was no like, yep, we're getting our Kickstarter. But then a week later, the Kickstarter thing happens, which
after the fake Kickstarter wasn't going very well.
New, neither thing is going well.
And then launch a second one alongside it, and then like keep changing your story on whether or not you are this company that is like being drowned in legal problems.
No, read the coverage, and you will see things like, oh, we just happened to get assets from this other company, even though we're not associated with that company, because the internet found a monster that someone at the previous company had made in their fucking trailer. Oh no, we just got computers from that company, even though that's violating like court orders and whatever. We wiped them all. No, really, we did. We're not sharing any technology with those people whatsoever.
So beautiful.
So bad.
Oh, we don't
so
have
bad so
offices
good.
anywhere anymore, even though, but it is almost unbelievable. Like you would not believe it in a movie. It's so fucking obvious what's going on.
Did you watch the video for the game?
I don't know what you're talking about.
But I will say that it looks too good to be real.
Really?
Like, it looks like it's like CG or faked or something.
No.
At the same time, like you haven't done a single thing except for release a 9-minute long video showing off the game, which we don't know when you made that. Like
that was 10 months of work. Really, really, really hard work where we spent a lot of hours putting that together. And it's something that I personally am very proud of everyone, and it just couldn't come together. So there were a few other people at Precursor that couldn't stay, and unfortunately, so there's a couple others, or 2 or 3 others, that were working with us as well.
We wish them well, and there's no hard feelings, and we appreciate everything that they've done with us in the early days. But like I said, like this is a risky venture for us, and we're putting everything into it. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, then we tried, and you know what? We're proud of what we've done.
Yeah, it's just a fucking like somebody should write a book. Basically, it needs a Mike Wallace on that.
Patrick Klepek, get on that.
Yeah,
Dennis is like the second name on that list.
Yeah,
he's
not the
face of the game. Yeah. He's not the top.
Right, but wouldn't you want to not have him in the public eye if you could avoid
100%.
it? So
totally. I get why they would do that.
Why would you even involve him in? Like, we're talking about this in terms of Denis Dyack, not in terms of a talented Silicon Knights team, right?
Unfortunately, this would really be the only discussion of Shadow of the Eternals of significance on the actual Giant Bombcast. An E3 interview with Denis Dyack and Sean Jackson later would go on their separate RSS feed that they have for sort of side interviews, but as far as the main Bombcast, this was it.
We're talking about the only Denis Dyack being the anchor that could pull this whole thing down. Like, I don't know how good those programmers are.
But at the same time, like, I feel like Denis Dyack has become the face of that stuff, but we don't really know how the Silicon Knights stuff went,
right?
And who was on what side? And like, if there was a struggle, if there were a bunch of good people that were getting dragged down by someone else.
Well, that's
what I would kind of want to talk to those guys about.
Go read. There was a really excellent development profile of the creation of X-Men Destiny. Kotaku put it up last year, I want to say.
We've announced now that following some of the negative press that's come out, and in particular the Kotaku article that's become quite notorious, Denis Dyack, our Chief Creative Officer, is actually going to take questions from the forum and answer them in a video blog. Ask him any questions you've got, because we all want to really do this. Dennis really wants to do this, and the sooner we can clear all this stuff up, the better.
Answers a lot of those questions.
Yeah, I actually reread that this morning. That's
go read that in the context of what this stuff is.
Good refresher.
And it will, you should not feel great about throwing your money at nostalgia when it feels like it might be slightly exploitative.
You know, from the outside looking in, what it looked like was a bunch of guys just left Silicon Knights, threw together a company, started a crowdfunding project on their own website, and they take my money immediately, and there's no guarantee I'm going to see a product or get it back if they don't make enough or anything. Like that was sort of the read I think a lot of people were getting when that first launched.
And you know what? That's fine. I don't really think we could have predicted how we were going to be perceived in the public eye. What we wanted to do first and foremost, like I said, is get our brand out there and prove that we're professional. We didn't intend on coming out and you know, like raising all these eyebrows and concerns. And things
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Like, how can you expect that, right?
I feel like Denis Dyack is the game industry's deadbeat dad.
It's a little harsh, but
yeah, it's a little harsh.
I see where you're coming from.
I just don't want to. I don't want to.
There's so much like it was good at one point. He was fun.
It's a bummer because every time I've not talked to that dude a lot.
See, I don't. Yeah,
but
yeah.
he seems like he means well.
Oh, I've enjoyed every
yeah.
personal conversation I've had with Dennis Dyack. Has always been
I feel fucking really bad about all this.
I don't
shit.
think he's trying to burn anyone.
That's one of those things that if there is right in the world, it won't get funded. You know.
I already take it as sign of God how badly their Kickstarter is going.
It's like exciting and it's terrifying. All at the same time. You're putting, everything that you have into something that is very unknown. And I know, like, for me personally, I wouldn't be able to get through it without the support of my family and friends, along with the support of everyone else in Precursor Games, because we're all going through this together. On this big unknown journey.
You don't feel sorry for like maybe the people that are like it.
No,
not
you have to make the decision to surround yourself with those people.
No, because they're associated. It's not anything personal with any one specific
you never
person.
know. It might be like the Hermit Kingdom. There, he might be like keeping them hostage and be all like, "You need to work with me."
At the end of the whole thing, I was kind of bitter. These people whose opinions I had looked up to. People who I'd felt a kinship with in our common enjoyment of this new hobby / entertainment / industry / newest art form in existence on the earth, I didn't feel kinship with anymore. Certainly they had made fun of developers and their failures before, smacked them down when they were trying to get previews or good press. It was all laughs and giggles until I was on board with something. Completely changed my whole perception.
We really want to be able to make this game and put it out there and get that feedback from the community and just keep improving on it.
I mean, are we succeeding?
I would say based on the reaction of the community, absolutely so far.
Yeah, I think so too.
But I just, we have a long way to go still,
Yeah, we do.
Whether or not a game even exists, not how well it sells, but whether or not it even exists, depends on the press and how much of that press you have on your side for whatever reason.
I'm sold. I loved Eternal Darkness. I like what you've been doing with Kickstarter. You guys have addressed a lot of the concerns I had, and it really does seem like you're in the right place to make this thing happen. So thank you very much for taking some time.
Of course, since that time, some things have changed. The discussion of games press has definitely changed. For right now, I just wanted to look at the hill that we found we had to climb when we launched that first crowdfunder, when we all came together to try and make Shadow of the Eternals a reality. Coming up next time on Dad's Basement, Episode 3, Part 3, Chapter 4.
Yes. Dunkin' Donuts listed there in the staff credits.
I really want to move forward in a positive way and focus on what I do best, which I think is focusing on creative.
You extend yourself and then you get stung, and it's like, well, now I don't want to extend myself anymore. And we sort of lose some of that discourse.
Back in the studio environment, there were a select few people that made it their mission to paint him in a certain kind of light.
You canceled the Kickstarter, you gave back the money that was through you.
We announced a company and a game at the same time.
I would not trust these motherfuckers with a ice cream cone in the wintertime.
There's more hits and more clicks that are made with negative news.